Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Game Analytics webinar. Today, our panel will discuss data-driven game development at every stage of game lifecycle. My name is Tomáš Hubka. I'm the marketing manager at Game Analytics. And for those unfamiliar, Game Analytics is the leading analytic platforms for mobile, Roblox, PC, console, and VR games, providing powerful tools to optimize game performance, improve player experience, and support market research, hence the title From Ideation to LiveOps. Namely, our analytics platform help collect and analyze player data to optimize gameplay, while the market intelligence platform, Market IQ, empowers developers with competitive insights for market validation, creative testing, and user acquisition strategies. LiveOps is also covered, helping developers to track engagement, segment players, and refine monetization strategies. This all in real time. So whether you're just at the beginning of your game dev journey or a seasoned developer, you are in the right place. Without further ado, I would like to introduce your host, the COO of Game Analytics, Alison Bilas.
Thanks, Thomas. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. As Thomas said, I'm Alison. I'm the COO at Game Analytics. My experience has been the last 13 years or so in data and games and kind of this intersection of the two. At Game Analytics, we get to work with thousands of game studios who use our platform every month to try to help them get the most out of their data to accelerate their decision making. And today we have a couple of guests to talk with us more specifically about what they do within their studios. Both of these gentlemen are using our tools on a daily basis. So we're going to talk about fine-tuning mechanics, balancing in-game economies, identifying growth opportunities, everything from the very beginning when you're ideating and trying to find a game to build in the first place, to testing that game, to launching that game, and then live operating that game. So there's a lot to discuss, and I think it's going to be great. I do want to just remind everybody, we will try to make this as interactive as possible. So the comments and questions that you put through, we can see. Thomas will help us to moderate them and bring them up at relevant times. We'll try to address them throughout, and then we have some time at the end as well to take questions from the audience. So please do pop them into the comments as well. Super thrilled to be joined by our two guests who really bring this experience to life and bring the data to life through the games that they're building. First, we have Emre from Leke Games, and we have Dennis as well from Illusion Labs. Welcome, you guys.
Hello.
I will let each of you introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about yourselves and your studios and your games that you're building. Let's start with Emre.
Okay, I'm Emre Ünal. I've been in the gaming industry since 2019, but I'm a game developer myself. So I was in around 2013. So it's been a long run for me. Right now, I'm working as a product and publishing manager at Leke Games. What we do is a simulation game, racing simulation. And I joined Leke Games in 2023, where we started as hybrid and hyper-casual games in my team inside Leke Games. At that time, we were still working on the simulation game, the racing category. But my proficiency was coming from the hyper-casual, so I was focused on that side. Right now, we are focused only on the casual game, and we run many tests last year, and we learn a lot from them. Right now, we're using our experience to expand our casual game. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so many studios are making that transition, just with what that's so representative of what's happening to a lot of studios in the industry. So it's great to have you.
Yeah,
and Dennis?
Hi, thank you, Alison and Thomas, for hosting. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Dennis, the CEO of Illusion Labs. I've been working for Illusion Labs for around 8 years, a bit more. Started in the art department and worked my way up through product management and game design and some biz dev, project management, and we're quite a small team, so we do it all, basically. So But yeah, now I'm working on as the CEO and try to run things as smoothly as possible. We're most famous for our sports simulation games in the touch grind series. So extreme sports like skateboarding, BMX, mountain bike for our latest game, and we also made a lot of different games such as platform games. Mr. Crab is one of those legacy games we had. Bacon Escape is one of my favorite names on one of our games, and that's what we do, and we've been doing it since before the App Store existed, basically. Yeah.
Great.
We're also transitioning more into the free-to-play monetization strategies, and we have been very organic downloads focused before, but we're transitioning more into control scaling through user acquisition and other campaigns. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So both of you have experience kind of working across all of these different stages that we're going to talk about today. I do want to start holistically by looking at the game development cycle as a whole, where every game has unique challenges at different stages, and data can help reduce uncertainty, but it's not always straightforward. And I'm wondering, just to kick off, where do you feel the most uncertainty in terms of your game's life cycle? Is it ideation? Is it early testing, or is it in LiveOps? Can you each tell me a little bit more about that related to how your studios are approaching this?
Would you like to start, Dennis, or should I?
Sure, I can go. I mean, we definitely think the early testing is the most scary part for us. Having many complex systems coming together and seeing how it works. We usually have a little bit longer development cycles than maybe other studios because we have a franchise with TouchGrind, and we create. We maybe don't test it in the early stages as much as maybe hybrid or hyper casual studios do. So we put a little bit more time into the early stages before we start doing external testing and that kind of thing. So I think the early testing with all the systems coming together is the most scary, and discovering if it is fun and what fun to follow and how to make it more fun and all that kind of thing. So ideation is a bit easier when it comes to our established franchise. It's basically extreme sports, so skateboarding and BMX. So you can look at data from our legacy games, see what we're missing, and I also think that you learn a lot from creating games for such a long time, especially having the same type of audience for a long time. So you will want to do that in new apps. Some of the changes that you have planned that isn't working in your older games, like changing the monetization system from the ground up, can be a big challenge in a legacy game. Maybe do it in a new game instead and see how it works. And also like trends from the genre that your game is part of, and even real life trends like is mountain biking popular, and where in the world is it popular? That can be also quite interesting. So if we were to create a game that is like if mountain biking is not popular in China or the US, it's going to be different decisions to be made. So even real life research can be a big part of our process.
Right.
Yeah, similarly, I would like to say that the ideation and the early testing phase is kind of interesting and hard, because if you have less data, if you don't have any legacy, just like Dennis told, so you should have someone experienced in that genre. For example, a game designer who can understand the niche genre is really handy for that kind of a game. But if you have a little bit detailed data, or you have analyzed your competitors well, you can create the really small steps and figure out your way on your own. But for our case, we have some experience on the racing games, and all of our members are car maniacs, I can say that. So it is kind of easy for us to create a simulation kind of a game.
Yeah. Okay, great.
I also want to share, if I may, like when we
Yeah.
created our latest game, Touchground X, which is a mountain biking game. We went to an old ski facility here in Sweden. The entire team went downhill mountain biking for research. We also did that for Touchground BMX too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, real life experiences actually affect the game design quite a bit. So it was fun, a bit too dangerous for us, but yeah, it was fun as well.
Yeah.
It's
This
a good
speaks a
company
little,
trip.
sorry, yeah, good company trip. It speaks a little bit to the ideation, actually, piece of it and how you approach it. I've also heard of a studio that would go to an art museum just to kind of find that creative inspiration. I
Smart.
am wondering, and you touched on it a little bit, but can you speak more to your process for market validation? You know, do you start by focusing on player behavior? What kind of competitor research do you do, and or is it something else altogether?
Do you want to start, Emre? Or?
Okay, let me answer this one.
I'm going to start calling on one or the other of you.
Okay. For the market validation, first thing we do is actually looking for the community insights, because you are working on a niche genre, so you should be able to understand your user behavior. Before we were working on hybrid casual and hyper casual, it was a more broad user base. But right now, when you try to make a simulation, a racing game, you should understand what the user feels and how they want to play, how they get fun out of it. Because if you don't like cars, you might not like the game. But if you like it, so you are going to be retaining it. That's what we focus on. That's why for the behavior of the player is a lot more important for us. But trying to follow up some competitors is not always a good idea, because your competitor might be working on something keeping iterated. They they have not finished yet. That's why figuring out the right competitor is a key part for that phase.
Yeah, and what about you, Dennis?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we try to look more, like I said before, into our older games and how the players have reacted to different things we've done. Also, looking into the community, like on Discord and stuff like that, to see what they are asking for, and also trying to take a data centric look at how are they engaging to our older games, or like our game Touchground Skate has been around for many years, and there's still a big player base. So that could say something about how that type of game could be remastered and done to something new in the future. And insights like that could be good for us. I'm not sure if I understood the question correctly, but yeah, that's what I got from that.
Yeah. Are you looking at competitors at all, either of you, for you said Emra, like really finding the right competitor is important, but do you do broad looking at competitors and kind of what's going on in this space? Maybe Emra, you can speak to why racing? You said the team has a passion behind it, but did you also kind of think that there was space in the market where there's more room for this type of game? And just realizing that you guys both have similar games, really, and maybe a little bit of overlap.
Yeah, actually, yeah, we have tried two genres. One of them was tower defense, and the other one was racing. And
Okay.
we made a couple of tests on each of them. The racing tests was better. That's why we choose it. We have not, when we start 2 years ago, we didn't check the whole market capacity. But after we started working on the project, really, we started working on the market, and we see that there's a gap inside the market where we can take our slice, I guess.
Big
That's why
market
we
out there.
choose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to look a bit broader, and we need to be better at looking into competitors in a more specific way, like Emre is doing. But we look quite a lot broader, I think, and we've always for a long time been market leaders in this specific genre on iOS and Android. So it's quite hard to find specific challenges or challengers to the extreme sports games that are similar to ours. But we're definitely looking broader into the sports category, and when we design different elements, we try to follow and see what trends might work for us and what might not, and we try them in our games and try to learn as much as we can from them. But from the beginning, it's basically when we try something out, it's 90% gut feeling, I think, when we try something out, and then 10% insights. And I think once we try it, we see if it works or not. So we're not as data driven as maybe Emre is. Yeah, we're more gut feeling.
Mm-hmm. There can be a balance, right? And it depends on where you're at, and a lot of different things in terms of how you use data and put them into play. I think it does guide decisions and it can help unblock things, but if you already have that intuition behind it, that's also something to go with. Like, you don't need to over test per se. It looks like,
Also, if you have many similar games, your gut feeling is much better than the data, probably, or similar to the data.
Yeah, it can be. Sometimes we're completely off, but that's part of the fun as well. So yeah.
Yeah. I was learning. Very cool. I think we have a question we could get to now. So which niche or genre do you think is the most competitive among mobile games? What are your thoughts on this?
I think I'm not an expert at all genres of games, but what I've been hearing is maybe don't get yourself into the match 3 genre if you don't have a big budget.
Yeah, exactly.
Have a very big budget, and that's what I would say. But I'm no expert at match 3, so yeah.
Yeah, your gut feeling is right at this point, I guess, because I would say the match 3 too, because they have really much budget and they have been doing this job for a long time. They have all the data. Working over there is kind of mess and hard for people, especially if you're a small studio.
Yeah.
One way you can look at that and try to analyze that is by the amount of advertising that these games are doing. I just did an analysis of word games because there's a game that I really like and want somebody to make for me. But and I was looking at, Words with Friends and a Scopely one. I'm forgetting the title, but they have. You can tell by the amount of advertising they're doing that they have huge UA budgets behind them. But then when you look at the amount of advertising compared to the downloads that they're getting, it's actually a lower ratio than other word games, which could show that there's some potential there in the market to kind of squeeze in. Just to say that that's one way of trying to understand. I like this genre. We have a team that's passionate about it. Maybe we want to look at some data behind it, and that's something, just one little signal maybe to understand what could be going on with the genre. Let's keep going here. I want to know a little more around maybe advertising. So testing early creative concepts or games with ads or trailers. Do either of you use this methodology? Maybe Emma, coming from the hyper casual, this was what hyper casual was really built on. So are you doing that now? And when you are doing it, what KPIs are you focusing on?
Actually, it depends on the time of your development. If you are in the early stage, trying to find new mechanics, you can make really good small fake creative tests. But if you are going for the retention and you need the retention, so I would suggest you to just share the raw footage of the game and try to figure out how the impression goes. If you can balance it, for example, if you have a really low CPI, you can either import it inside the game, or if you have a really good retention, you can try some different fake things inside your creative in the gameplay. and you might want to try to drop the CPI in that case.
Hmm.
Yes, we are doing that.
Yeah, super interesting. So you're testing even like mechanics by showing them in the ad and trying to understand, does this
Yeah.
mechanic or that mechanic work better?
Yeah.
That's
Also,
okay, interesting.
sometimes we call it a baklava game inside our company, where
Hmm.
we share two different ideas. For example, one of the marketing team guy says, "Let's do this," and the other one inside the game design team says, "Do this." And then we, everyone inside the studio bets on the ideas, and we test both of them. The loser buys baklava to the other ones, so it's really fun for us. And even if you don't win, you can eat the baklava. So everyday baklava for us.
Yes, very nice. And Dennis, what about you? Are you using this method?
Not specifically this method. Of course, we try to have out teasers and TikTok videos and everything of earlier footage and see how people react, but not in the same way as Emre is. I can't bring much expertise here. That's not really the way we work. Yeah.
Yeah. What about maybe each of you could give some more examples of specific mechanics or gameplay concepts. You were talking that you do test it through advertising or other methods, but can you give me an example of a specific mechanic that you tested and what was your approach to this?
For our case, we actually we have a game called Oil Tycoon, where we scale back on when we do the hybrid casual. At first, we tried making small rocks. You just go and break some boulders, and the boulder drops some small rocks, and you scoop them up. And in the creative test, we tried making the rocks, small rocks, flute, and it worked really fine for us. Then we add the same thing inside the game. We change all these small rocks to oil droplings, and we scoop them up in the CPI. The we actually dropped the CPI by around 30%, and the retention was going around uh, 10 points. Yeah, around
Hmm.
10 points.
Okay, interesting. And Dennis?
Yeah, like we try events and limited time events in our older games if we try some new mechanics, and that's basically how we do it in a as risk-free way as possible. So it's a win-win situation. Our player gets something new to try out, and if it doesn't work, it's not going to affect long term or the economy or the retention of the players, but we can find good data there. So we have one event in Touchground BMX2, which is a modifier event that we are adding into our latest game as well in a different way, but still it's a new way of playing touch grind that we our players found interesting. We saw a huge increase in engagement and also in ad impressions and that kind of thing. So
Hmm.
basically how the example that I have, which is the latest example. Yeah.
Very nice. This idea of having kind of either events or side modes is definitely a good methodology for testing where it's not permanent. You don't set the expectation that it will be permanent, but kind of an extra feature on the side, if you will. One example, I worked on Bejeweled Blitz back in the day, which is Bejeweled, but a 1 minute version. And that started as a mode inside the larger Bejeweled download game. So you'd buy Bejeweled for $7 and it was a side mode. And then they turned this into their first like free to play game back in my PopCap days, and it became ginormous. So yeah, it's interesting how that can happen. It can become the bigger game concept potentially.
Yeah, for sure. And you always want to try it with as a big audience as you can. So I think events are quite brilliant when it comes to that. And yeah.
Yeah, very cool. What about maybe we can move into our next section around testing, analyzing, and optimizing your games just a little bit more. We're already touching on this in terms of early stage testing. Um, could you each speak to maybe the most critical metrics that you track during this testing and launching phase of your games?
Yeah, of course. Any of the metrics could be critical, but the one metric which is working all the time is retention. So if you can find a good retention, if you know your users, you know your user behaviors, it is easier for you to understand them. So you can create more fun events inside the game. But for example, for some cases, for some hyper casual games, when you have a low CPI, um, perhaps you can scale your game with 30% retention. So it depends on the game and genre. But when we work on a casual game, we are just focused on the retention.
Mhm.
Yeah, I also agree that retention is definitely the most important metric to keep track of. But I think also it has its place in testing, and we usually go through testing through three stages, which is tech alpha, which is very important to even start testing retention, because if you don't have a stable game, and our games are quite technical, and there's a lot of systems like I mentioned before. So we have some examples where we didn't do the tech alpha good enough, so we were seeing some higher numbers of ANRs and crash rate than we were expecting at the start. So we had to go back and fix that. So it can actually cost you quite a lot if you don't go and look at the right metrics at the right time. So I think start with the stability of your game, the ANRs and the crash rates. Also try the server loads, and you can do that in. We did it in the Philippines last time, and then we moved on to like Poland. And but I think with AI nowadays, you don't really even need to think too much about what countries you try, because you can always like translate the game into a different language using AI. So it can work in any country. I think whatever you are comfortable with, but Philippines is good for us, and yeah, I think that's very important. And after you're done with that, you go into the retention stage, where you look at increasing the retention. Early retention first, onboarding, first time user experience, that kind of thing. Then day 7 to 30, so like goals, progression systems, difficulty scaling, and later on, if you have time, if you don't have someone breathing down your neck, you can go 30 day plus with social features and that kind of thing. But most mobile game developers are in a rush, so maybe you don't have time. But it's also very important to have the day 30 plus retention tested before you global launch.
Yeah.
So yeah, and also then after I could talk a long time about this, but monetization phase after that, because if you can't retain your players, you're not going to monetize them either. So go into the monetization stage later on, and I have an example of the monetization stage we did for Touchscreen X in our latest game. We have an ad placement at the end of the match, where you can watch an ad to get like double the currency or the resources that you get. No one was accepting that offer, basically. And then we made like a mini game out of it. So you have like this thing that goes like this, and you have to stop it by watching an ad, and you get a better or a worse reward, and it increased by 300%. It became our like second top rewarded ad placement in the game, and it's all from like testing different things and trying things out. So it really make a difference if you do a lot of experiment in this phase with monetization, because you know that you have retention already in place.
Yeah. Dennis, you just said that you were not very data driven, and then you just like broke down all of the drivers of retention, all of the drivers of monetization. I do think something that people, game studios can miss out on is actually just breaking down retention, and what the drivers are for it. And kind of, I liked how you described even so starting from the beginning is the first part working well, and then just following that player journey through the whole experience to make sure that they will retain over time.
Yeah, for sure. You have to see how the funnel is working, and like data driven is maybe I'm not putting it correctly, but I like to say that we focus a lot on the fundamentals and not like tweaking small tiny things.
Hmm.
So fundamentals first, and that's how we are maybe data driven. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Emma,
So
I'm
sorry.
curious where monetization comes into play, but please finish your thought as well.
Yeah, that's okay. I was gonna say the focusing on the root of the problem is the best case, which
Mm,
Dennis said. Trying to find the root problem and fixing it is always working inside the gaming industry in the games.
yeah,
And people miss it all the time, and they try to fix small things instead of focusing on the root problem.
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. They're like reading articles on websites and listening to podcasts, and they're like, yeah, you have to tweak this tiny little thing because no one has anything else to talk about anymore because we've all everyone has covered their fundamentals already, so everyone
Mm,
is talking about the small tiny things to optimize their games.
hmm.
So it can be quite hard when you're new into the business, I guess.
Yeah.
Not going into the fundamentals, but listening to the experts. Yeah.
That's good advice. Super good advice. Emma, can you speak to when do you start looking at monetization signals in terms of the viability of a game? You said it's, retention first for you, but when does the monetization side come into play?
It is actually we are preparing our monetization design first at the start of the ideation, and right after we start small tests, we just have some little data about how the monetization can work or not, and we make some small changes, just like Dennis said, changing the double rewarded visual, etc. And when we finish the retention, for example, for our case, it was around 40 day one retention. We started monetization. How we decide that was actually taking a look at our ROS. So we figured out we can get users with some CPIs and check for our LTVs.
Mm,
Then when we decide that we can monetize this and increase our LTVs by making many monetization ABs, it's going to be easier for us to scale this game. So
hmm.
we started working on the creatives and the monetization phase right after we reach our benchmark at 40 plus retention.
Okay, you quickly move into the next
Yeah.
phase, of course, yeah. Um, Dennis, you kind of started to touch on this, but finding that balance of looking at the viability signals, retention, monetization, within engagement within the game, and how your acquisition might work with time to market and maybe also some budget constraints. And I'm wondering if you can speak more about that. How do you approach this balance at Illusion Labs?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understood the question correctly, but when we yeah, could you say that again? I'm sorry, it's a long
So
question.
you have to. So it's one thing to be kind of before you launch. It's one thing to be looking at all the signals for viability, that it's got the retention and the monetization. But on the other side of things, you have to get this game out the door. Maybe you only have so much budget to be putting into the testing and whatnot. So I'm just wondering how you kind of go, okay, um, maybe it's when you make that decision, it's go time. But how do you find balance between those elements?
Yeah, and we always release our games too early. I think it's one of the things that we've always done, but it's always worked out for us. We've always had a good organic baseline, so we don't really have the issue where we have to kill a game instantly if it doesn't work because
Hmm.
it doesn't. We have this franchise where we can build upon it for a longer time. We're not in a rush. We don't have that kind of issue. So I think maybe we're quite unique in that situation. So maybe don't listen to me when it comes to that. But we release it a bit too early. I would advise people to maybe hold it back a bit longer than we do. But yeah, we release something to have our baseline play the game, and then we can continue to scale in a sustainable way. It doesn't have to be an extreme spike at the beginning. For example, BMX2 was quite flat when we released it, and then after half a year or something, it took off. So we don't really follow the same rules, maybe, since we're independent and we don't have that problems with the financial things. Yeah.
What about you, Emra?
I would love to answer the same question just like Dennis, but we have some kind of a rush and we are trying to keep up with the people demanding us from the updates and our users, of course. Actually, how I can answer that question? What for a studio who has some experience inside some kind of a niche genre, it is perhaps easier to scale and build it. But if you are trying to figure out the data and move on it, it is going to be harder for the studio. So you have to keep taking a look at your budget. You cannot make mistakes. You cannot make wrong updates. Either you test it before or you test it in the live and you give you from your time. So it is for us, we test it before and try to lower the wrong updates. Of course, we have some wrong or false updates, but you are learning from your mistakes. So for if you have a budget, you can make mistakes, but if you don't have some budget, so perhaps you can try to launch your game early and make some tests or try to gather some organic users and try to learn from their data.
Thank you. Moving forward here, I am wondering if you guys can give us a specific example, again, around identifying a specific mechanic and how you go about doing that, how you identify a specific mechanic for iteration. And maybe you can talk to a specific mechanic that you found that you maybe didn't think of at the beginning would have some kind of impact, but once you identified, oh, it's this mechanic that we need to figure out how to optimize.
Yeah, I can start if that's okay, Emre. Yeah, so we definitely look at data when it comes to that. Like when looking at retention, for example, we were looking at the player funnel for the first-time user experience in our game Touchground BMX2, and we tried to do a lot of different things to increase the retention during the tutorial phase of the game. We did many different things to try and optimize it. Did a lot of A/B testing and that kind of thing. Added a way to skip the game, the tutorial, and nothing worked. And then we just decided to make an A/B test of removing the tutorial completely, and it increased the retention quite high. Just looking into the data, seeing where are the players churning, and trying whatever you can to make them not. And sometimes removing the entire feature can be can be the solution. And I like to have A/B tests that if you are not scared to do it, maybe don't do it. In our case, there is a trend of doing too many A/B tests, I think. That's just speaking for me and the rest of the team, and what you may hear from other teams. But I like to be more aggressive when you do A/B tests to actually get correct data. And when you do an A/B test, it needs to be quite a lot of users to make sense of the data. Otherwise, it's going to take a very long time to get that data, and sometimes you don't have that time to wait. So make aggressive A/B tests based on data.
Yeah, that's great. And Emra, what about you? What's your approach here?
We at the start we had around 5 or 7 modes inside the game where you can make circuit races, drag races, and there was a mode which we loved playing, explosion mode. In every 10 seconds, the last one is exploding, and you are trying to be the first one. You're racing, but in the tests we figure out that people are mostly playing on the drag race. So we completely discarded the other ones. And right now, after 50 levels, we are still thinking of adding these modes. But what our users are expecting from us is actually improving the drag race. So after the A/B tests, we remove the other options and go on with the drag mode.
Mm-hmm. These are great examples of big A/B tests, both of them, of adding or removing features overall. I think that's really insightful. Before we move into the next topic, I do want to just remind people listening that we're open to the questions. We've seen a few coming that we're just holding on to the end for, but please do feel free to drop more into the chat as you're listening. And we'll get to some of the questions that were asked as well towards the end. But the next section here is covering LiveOps. And, when you get into this phase where you're solidly in LiveOps, this is kind of a luxury. So your game is out there and it is operating in a good way. You've had some success and you're in optimization mode. It would be great to hear both of your guys' approach to live operations. And there was a question here as well around how do you approach player segmentation for LiveOps initiatives as well. So yeah, if you can speak to this, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can start. We are not too deep into player segmentation yet. We are exploring it more, but we do the basics. So paying and non-paying users, and we also have a dynamic difficulty system in place for our game, and try to do the fundamentals right before we dive deep into more narrow segmentation of our LiveOps. So right now, I don't have too much insight except for the fundamental parts. So I think Emre, maybe, do you have any more insight into the specifics there, or?
I could say that if you are doing the LiveOps, that your game is going to be retaining, profiting more. Your game has some kind of life, and for example, if you want to keep that alive, keep that game alive, you should be focusing on the LiveOps more, because changing the difficulties or for example, actually segmentation is not just trying to figure what player likes. Segmentation, or you just don't want to split the users. You want to try to figure out how that segment of the user is experiencing the game. That's the important part, that you don't want to just split them up and try to give them different prices or different rewards, etc. But if you can understand that kind of segment, would like to play drag races, okay, you can give them more drag races. But the other segment would love to play other modes, so you can give it to them. If you can create a good system around this one, it's going to be much more profitable game for you.
Mm-hmm.
But as Dennis, we are actually on the starting of the segmentation phase 2.
Mm-hmm. Kind of preparing for the LiveOps elements to it.
I completely agree with the segmentation part about it not being just throwing out different price points on stuff for players. It's all about learning about your players and how they're reacting, and it seems like a quite complex thing to do, but I'm excited to dive deeper into it and maybe ask Emre what his experiences are when he's doing it.
Yeah, actually, you become friends with your segments, actually, because after a while you are learning them, and when you learn them, it is much easier for you to put some rewards or add something, because you know that he's going to love it or they are going to love it. Just like having many childrens and learning them.
It's like you've done the hard you've done the hard work to acquire these players. It's also hard work to have children, so you need to hold on to them with your life. I love that. I think, just looking at time as well, it might be time to be getting into some questions. Thomas, there was one about LiveOps that maybe we could show here and bring up for them. What existing game has the best LiveOps examples in it? Where do you go to for LiveOps inspiration?
I could answer that, but it is not a mobile game. You can take a look at Fortnite and what they are doing. They are adding many features and they are changing the game all the time. I think they are best at the live ops.
Can you give an example of that, of what, in playing Fortnite, what's something that you've been inspired by to bring into your games?
They are making many agreements with companies, the brands, and they are
Mhm.
adding many new trending characters or trending movie things inside the game. I am not actually playing the Fortnite, but I really love watching their updates because I'm trying to learn from them what
Mhm.
char- uh, they're focusing on their users, and their users are focusing on the trends. That's why
Mm.
they are adding the trendy things inside the game all the time,
Mhm.
and they are doing it really well.
Mhm. That's interesting. What about for you, Dennis?
Yeah, I think I can add some mobile games. Like I really like what Alien Invasion has been doing with their live ops and their events. I think they're quite brilliant, and I also think Brawl Stars deserves some credit for their live ops, especially lately. So yeah, check those games out.
Mhm.
I think most of you maybe have played them, but there's a lot of games out there that's doing great live ops, and you can only mention so many, right?
This is an interesting space because live ops in general, because it means a lot of different things to different people. As you said, it's kind of some it's more heavy on the events or building in trends into your game. Some it's around optimizing the offers and these types of things. So I do think it's a really interesting area of these. What for your particular games, which live ops levers work best for you? If you because there's so many options out there, but what works best for your particular games?
For us, we have worked on the events. We have created daily events or weekend events for our users, which worked really fine. And we have created some exclusive rewards for these users and exclusive cars. Uh, I don't know whether you know Overwatch game, but similar like that, we are creating, for example, a winter event, and you can get that car only in winter. If you miss it this winter, you can get it in the next winter. So it's a good way to keep your users looking for the events again and again.
Mm-hmm. You're great. All right, I think we should move into questions. Thomas is posting one for me. Let me just read it because he's saying it can't be posted. But what metrics become of priority down the line upon achieving the retention goals and having your stable game versions out there?
I mean, the games and the players change quite a lot during their lifetime. So I think retention is always going to be a big thing. Increasing your retention is never going to be a thing of the past, and also increasing and fine tuning engagement. So what are they engaging with? Bringing new things in, and if you don't bring new things in, it's gonna be you're gonna be losing retention. And if you bring new things in, you're going to have a lot more things to fix. So it's an endless cycle of bringing in new things that you have to fix and keep updated. So I think it's not really something that you can like focus on one thing more in the future. I think the fundamentals will always be the biggest part of your focus, no matter how big or good you are. But yes, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Emra?
Yeah, I agree with Dennis actually here. The metrics is, I mean, the retention is always the most important thing, and you can add something that will change your retention, but you have to fix the upcoming bugs. So it's a never-ending cycle.
Do you guys have I'm wondering if you have the idea of a success metric or success moment that shows that, okay, this player is engaged. Again, getting back to hyper casual studios, one success metric would be they've completed 10 levels, and
Yeah.
then that's what they're optimizing their UA on as well. So are you guys thinking in that way as well, that there's a moment when you think, okay, this is where I want to get the player to, because I know they're engaged or because I could buy against them?
Yes, but you have to get a lot of data for that in order to
Okay.
understand
What
that
that is.
metric. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, same here. We don't really trust in that yet, because you could be optimizing for something that has changed, and you never know what is the ultimate goal. And especially with LiveOps and things changing all the time with your game and with your players and with the competitors, it's going to be hard to just do that types of goal. But of course, when you can see some players are achieving this, you can see that they are more likely to be valuable to your economy. But not like a definite point they reach that is the ultimate goal.
More holistic.
I think trusting that is really hard, because you can trust it and use it in your UI campaign, but in 2 months it can be just finished. You never know. So you have a lot more data to really trust in that UI campaign.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's take another question from the audience. I think Thomas will bring it up. For a small studio or team during the ideation stage, what pitfalls should you avoid? And then budget prioritization and allocation.
There are so many pitfalls to avoid. It's like a lifetime of knowledge that you have to know to not fall into them. So I think just it's very hard to say something that is like, yes, don't do this, but you have to fail. You have to be okay with failing. I think you have to try different things even if you're scared about it. But I think maybe using game analytics tool for some market research is a good thing if you're just new to the business and new to games, or you start up a studio with a new genre that you're tackling. Try to get as a good sense of the market as you can, and don't try to become the next World of Warcraft. Just try and make it small and still be bold, and try to be okay with making mistakes. And yeah, you're gonna fail a lot, and it's gonna be okay. The budget allocation, maybe Emre can take that one.
Yeah, budget allocation. You can make many tests if you can. I don't know. If you don't have the budget, try to move on a game where you can gather some organic users. In order to understand that, you can either choose something you really like to work on, or something that is very trendy right now, or you have already made something. You can add some trends inside your game to get some organic users. But if you don't have the budget, try to reach out to some publishers to make some tests for you. At least you can make some early tests, then try to figure out which way to go. The budget allocation is really hard these days, especially in Turkey.
Okay, we have another question around A/B tests. It says, what is the most surprising insight you've ever gotten from an A/B test?
Some things won't work. Even if you are 100% right and you think that's going to work, that might not work.
Do you have an example of something that you thought this is definitely going to win?
Yeah, I was thinking that the bomb race was going to be the best one, but the drag
Okay,
race
yes.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you had to bring in the baklava for everybody, or
yeah,
okay.
exactly.
That's fun. What
I
about
think-
you, Dennis? Yeah.
I think I was most surprised by how far you can push ad monetization without seeing retention drop. Like,
Interesting.
yeah, I was surprised by that. We were very scared with A/B testing, as you should be. We didn't see any decline basically at all until we push it quite far. So it was interesting. Try to be aggressive with your testing, and you will see interesting results.
Yeah.
Also, like removing the tutorial is a good one as well.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I do think those fundamentals, like to the question of what are pitfalls, understanding what the fundamentals are, I think is important, and kind of these levers or what the framework is you're working within so that you can know, maybe I test how far I can go with A/B testing, or what I could do with adding or removing features. And yeah, I think that's been a nice insight and conversation that we've had today.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
It's good advice. Yeah.
Any other pieces that you guys want to cover, just as we need to wrap up based on time, but I'm wondering if there's any other insight or thing that you want to talk about with our audience.
Actually, I can add one more thing. If you are working on a game and trying to scale it, never forget your users that are still playing the game. If you are trying to reach to the new users all the time, you're going to miss your current users. Don't forget them, and don't break your game just trying to make an update.
Yeah, that's good
And
advice.
I want to tip in there to don't be scared of your users either. They will forgive you more than you might know, and don't be scared to make changes that will ultimately make the game better. They will understand later on, and if they don't now, they will maybe later. But in my experience, when discussing problems that we have, like, can we even do this? Can we do this change? And ultimately we have to, and it's always turned out to be okay. So don't be scared of them. Be respectful of them, of course, but don't be scared.
Yeah.
But if you have legacy of games, that could work. But if you are trying to make different games all the time, that might not.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree.
This was super great. I loved hearing both of your perspectives from where you're at with your studios and your games and what you're trying to achieve overall. So thanks a lot for being here with us and sharing your expertise. I'm sure everyone learned a lot as well. Yeah, just a huge thanks. And I thank you also to the audience for the questions. We appreciate that and appreciate your attendance and being here with us today. From a game analytics perspective, just to say that we have a couple of big events coming up with Games Forum Barcelona, and also GDC is right around the corner. So if you're going to be there and would like to chat about game analytics, market IQ, we always love to hear from studios in terms of what you're doing with your data and to see if we can help out, of course. But do reach out if you will be at any of the events. We will announce more webinars and things like that soon as well. But for now, we'll say goodbye and thanks to everyone for attending. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.